there are really a couple things. Like one of the things, is what is the most natural fit for the company and what they're offering. Um, and that's not only just as a company, but as, a business owner. So let's say if someone is not comfortable making videos, they're not comfortable on video, then a video heavy strategy is probably not good for them.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to figure out what is naturally a good fit that will flow well with people, because, they could get a video produced, but maybe that person really likes to write. So, we might do something that's more content heavy with them. Like, what is the lifetime value? Because we may find someone that wants a quick solution.
Mm-hmm.
It's a quick sell, but then, that customer is kind of a one and done thing. So we look at the back end as well, like where are customers coming from that are, becoming, a customer for life. I actually was born and raised in rural West Virginia. A very typical childhood. And my dad was a coal miner. My mom was a homemaker. And so the dinner table was really, I guess, just for having dinner. Sometimes together, all at once, sometimes kind of spread out. I mean, it wasn't really a formal type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that, most of the conversations, were definitely not entrepreneurial. It was more, about family and, things that were going on, school, things like that. So I guess you would say pretty typical, maybe just not, it wasn't really a big formal theme.
Yeah. And so we'll get into some of your long list of experiences and successes here in a minute, but you kind of just touched on that you didn't really have an entrepreneurial upbringing. You weren't really exposed to it
No.
that much. Do you have any ideas or can you remember back when it first started hitting you, to go out and do things on your own?
Yeah, I mean, for whatever reason, I've been told by my parents and relatives that even at a very early age, I would always say things like, I'm going to be in California or New York, or I'm going to move somewhere to a bigger city, and I guess where this came from, I have no idea, but once apparently I even threatened to sue the kindergarten teacher because I didn't think she had the proof that she could force us to take a nap. And I definitely didn't hear that from my parents, so
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from, but I was always I always felt very different, and I just felt like, I want more than what is here,
Mm-hmm.
and more than what is available. When I was growing up in West Virginia, I mean, great people, great town, and everything, but I just knew that there were bigger things.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first real taste of that was whenever I started getting on the internet, and this would have been in the 90s, getting, on the internet, the very first, dial up, all that. And from there, I was pretty much off to the races, because I was always like a really, like a really smart kid in terms of, like schoolwork and everything. So I would finish up that very early. And a lot of the teachers that I had were very, supportive, and I would get on the internet at school and then got on the internet at home and just kept learning. And I realized that, wow, there are some opportunities here.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually started my first business when I was in just starting middle school. So I guess
Wow.
13, 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And really since,
And is that like legitimate, like LLC filing and all of that? Like real?
back then that was sole proprietorship.
Okay.
And it was, essentially just self-taught computer repair. And
Okay.
I always just looked at it, at that point as like, I can solve a lot of problems, but,
Mm-hmm.
if there's something I can't figure out, I just won't charge the person. And, I put up flyers, and I put like a little display ad in the local newspaper and everything. And that just kind of built up kind of, a lot of confidence in being able to just, figure things out. And then the real catalyst though was during that time when I got into web design.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all self-taught too. And this was basically back during the time where, like if, text moved on a page, that was like the greatest thing. And, it was very basic, but, I got into web design, and basically here I was in middle school. Basically from middle school on, I've never had a year where I've made less than six figures.
Mm-hmm.
So I was this middle schooler, and I was doing web design for all these people all over, because I realized the power of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
You can reach people all
Exactly.
over the place. And this was, I think PayPal was just coming out as like x.com or something back
Mm-hmm.
in the day. So most of the time, like I was getting these money orders showing up for like thousands of dollars. And so I was this middle schooler making six figures. My parents had no idea what I'm doing. They're like kind of worried, kind of confused. They didn't even really use computers at the time.
Yeah.
And so they're just like, I hope you're not selling drugs, doing anything illegal. Like, where's all this money coming from? What are you doing? And it really, I kind of turned into this local celebrity. I mean, I was, in the newspaper all the time. Like the small town was getting recognition from like the state government. It was this crazy, crazy time. But, yeah, that's kind of how I got the
That's,
start. And then web design led into web hosting,
yep.
because web hosting to me, that's when things really clicked in terms of like the compounded effect of like subscription income and
Mm-hmm.
recurring income. Because I thought, it's nice to be able to like make a website, but they have to pay to have it hosted somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically like, I always just say like basically the server and internet connection on the other side of what someone at home,
Mm-hmm.
is using whenever they access a website. And so I got into web hosting, and that was really, through high school, finished high school early, and just kind of continued in the web hosting path.
So when you first got into web hosting, were you like setting up racks of servers or something in your bedroom, or how did you
No,
start that out?
I actually started with just getting a reseller account,
Okay.
and then I started getting my own servers. When I first started, cPanel, which most people are probably familiar with now, it hadn't been released yet.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I was a beta tester for it. Actually, it was exclusive to one facility at the time, like one data center. You had to get a server there in order to get cPanel. So I used, started with the reseller account, moved on to getting dedicated servers. So, which is basically, just like leasing for a monthly fee an
Mm-hmm.
entire server. And then within, you might pay like $200 a month for a server that's in a data center somewhere else, fully, connected to the internet and all of that. And then on that server, I would essentially like subdivide the space, and could put hundreds of accounts on that server, that we're all paying, $20, $30 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was pretty profitable. The only other thing was really support, and I was always able to to, handle that. So I just, kept growing that, and, really got established in the web hosting industry.
That's amazing. And so obviously that foundation led you to essentially be the senior VP of HostGator, which probably pretty well everyone listening knows who HostGator is
Yeah.
today.
So what happened there is, I finished high school early, 17, wanted, to move. So I moved to upstate New York to actually, and I merged like my web hosting company, which was fairly small. I mean, it was only six figures, but it was, that's fairly small, into a little bit larger hosting company. And went there. So I was the VP of business development there, and then VP of operations. And it just wasn't a good fit. Just did not really gel well with the founder of that company. But I'd kind of rolled my company into it to take a job there and move to New York. And then through the industry, I had met Brent, the founder of HostGator, mostly on message boards. That was really kind of the web hosting talk, industry message boards at the time. And he knew that I was pretty well established in the industry, knew it, and he had started HostGator, was starting to grow, and he said, "Hey, do you want to move down to Florida and help grow HostGator?" And it was just kind of it was an interesting time, because we obviously didn't know what HostGator would turn into.
Mm-hmm.
It was doing pretty well at the time, growing, but so I moved down to Florida. He and I had values that seemed more aligned, and then it was literally, we were in a situation there where it was like, he said, "I don't really know what you're gonna do. Pick your title. I know it'll be good. And I know you can help. I just don't know what." So we went there, and I set up a lot of the initial business processes, because it was growing so fast and he was so focused on the growth that I'm like, okay, we need to have better accounting. We need to have some more operational structure, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I put all that in place.
And when you're saying that, like, can you describe what that means? Are you essentially creating the processes and procedures, the manuals? What does that look like when you're doing that?
I think honestly, it was really, the best way to describe it would be that at the time he was really still running HostGator as kind of like a solopreneur would, in terms of he was basically doing everything.
Mm-hmm.
And even though there were, I think at the time, about 9 or 10 employees already. And so, but he was still just kind of manually doing everything. So like for accounting, I'm like, "What accounting software, do we use?" He's like, "I just like save everything and give it to the CPA at the end of the year, and they enter it all in." And I'm like, "Well, how are you tracking things?" And it's just like, "I don't know. All I know is like the bank balance just keeps going up, up, up." And like
Well, he's
that was
lucky.
happening so fast.
Yeah.
And HostGator just had a lot of magic. And so we ended up within about 6 months from the time I moved there, we decided that, we're growing so fast, South Florida, we couldn't really hire as many people as we needed to hire easily. So we moved to Houston, so we went from this 1,500 square foot space in a strip mall that was like, and we had like 15, 20 people there, working out of that little space. And then we went from that 1,500 square foot strip mall space to buying 35,000 square foot
Wow.
building in Houston. And it was one of those things where we thought, we'll never run out of space. I mean, it was kind of like, the building was 4 stories. We had the entire fourth floor. The other 3 floors had tenants, so it was a great move for us. And then things just really skyrocketed. And then it was like, yeah, we're not renewing any of these leases. We need another building. Like, everything's full. And during that time, we, hired hundreds of new employees and grew. Went on at that point. We had about 3 million sites hosted.
Wow.
A couple hundred employees. There was no, with HostGator, there was never any outside investment, outside debt, anything like that. It was all just basically from growth, compounding, and rolling back into the company. And we got to a point where Brent, the founder, said, "Hey, can you go start another company?" And, I'm like, well, I mean, I kind of like what we have going here. Things are good, but his view on that was like, he was very, all of his, pretty much his entire net worth was tied up in HostGator. So he's like, can you just go start a company? I'll invest whatever you need into the company and provide all the capital. And, I just want a stake in that company. So that's what led me to start really in parallel while I was still, senior VP at HostGator. Basically, I launched a voice over IP company, VOIPO, VOIPO, which I actually still own today. So it's about 14 years old. And the thought with it was that, we love the recurring revenue, the subscription revenue, which web hosting obviously was, and but not everybody needs a website. Like businesses maybe, but not consumers. So we wanted to go broader. And so that's where we, launched VOIPO. And, it was something that HostGator was, his baby. He owned HostGator fully. And so when I started the new company, that was really my baby.
Okay.
VOIPO. So it was
were you
completely separated.
Were you able to use HostGator as the back end to host all of the?
Yeah, we were able to, we had servers and stuff from HostGator, and we also had a little bit of a boost from being able to cross promote, and promote to HostGator customers. And so when VOIPO started, it was a much higher barrier of entry. I mean, we spent over $1 million before we even started selling service.
Yeah.
So with it, we built it out, and then as it grew, I just kind of phased more out of HostGator, and HostGator continued to grow. Once I was really fully focused on VOIPO, I decided to move the company to Southern California from Houston. I just wasn't really a big fan of Houston. And at that point I was looking at quality of life too.
Yeah.
Because, we've already had a successful company. There's a lot of pros and cons to California, but it was just more the lifestyle that I wanted. So moved it there. HostGator went on, and I was still I would come, help with like strategic things, through the end, but HostGator ended up exiting and selling to an investment company. The exit was a couple $100 million a few years later. So that's kind of the web hosting component of things.
Yeah, very impressive. So what was it? I mean, obviously you just went through two different businesses that one I guess sort of piggybacked off of the success of the other one. Were there any common similarities between the two that you can say that these were sort of specific strategic steps or commonalities that really help propel that company forward? Anything come to mind as far as what you would suggest? Again, maybe somebody's setting up a company today. What
Right.
can they take from some of the learnings that you just did with two very successful companies?
Yeah. So let's say, HostGator and VoIPO, and like I said, VoIPO, I still own today,
Mm-hmm.
and it's 14 years old, so that's a pretty long time for phone service. But interestingly, we still have some customers that, have been with us for 10 years, 12
Mm-hmm.
years. It's crazy. But, one of the biggest things that I think we really did is we didn't do everything that we were, quote, supposed to do,
Mm-hmm.
because we didn't have that influence. And if a lot of our competitors, they had raised, outside capital, they, had a lot of, or they took on debt, or, they did things that exposed them to a lot of other people that were kind of like, this is the way you do things. This is how you do things. We didn't have that exposure. So we just kind of did what we thought was best. And it's really interesting, but we just took a very common sense approach to everything. We reinvested very heavily into the companies,
Mm-hmm.
to fuel growth. We focused very heavily on customer service and providing a good service that was always improving, because we knew with the recurring revenue that, if we could just keep providing, a good service and back that up with good customer service, that, the recurring revenue would continue to build.
Mm-hmm.
And we just focused on the service. Really, we focused on the service and the customer service more so than we did trying to generate a profit,
Mm-hmm.
because that was just kind of like a byproduct of focusing on, providing a good service and really connecting with customers. So a second thing that kind of, as part of that, is that we were very transparent and open with our customers.
Mm-hmm.
At HostGator, Brent was, even through, after HostGator was well into, hundreds of millions, in terms of revenue, he was still interacting with customers, not all customers, but it was very, well known that it was like, hey, if you are having a problem, you can't get it resolved through the normal channels, here's my direct email. And he would
Mm-hmm.
reply to those personally. I did the same thing with VoIPO. And because there are always going to be issues that come up, whether that's like, an occasional outage, or, a service problem, or, like maybe a new employee doesn't understand something. And so, we would always just say for, both companies, I would, with VoIPO, I would say, try to get your issues resolved through the normal channels, but you can email the owner directly, and email me if you have issues there, and I'll fix it.
Mm-hmm.
I might not be able to solve your problem, if it's a technical problem, but I can either get the right person involved, or, I can correct, something that, that came up, just to make sure that the experience is good.
Yeah. Yeah. So all about customer service, which is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, focus on your customers and everything else falls into place. It's what we always focus on as well. So completely agree there. Um, Talk a little bit about what you're doing today and what your focus is. I mean, obviously you still have, the
Mm-hmm.
VoIPO company, but what are you into these days?
Yeah. So I still have VoIPO. And VoIPO's, continuing to grow. It's, telecom's a pretty stable business, and so after, after having, a certain level of success, I kind of got into doing some angel investing, and, some other companies were asking me to, consult for them. And so I ended up starting a consulting company called ProfitLayer. And, the concept with that was that, you know, in any business, there are multiple layers that go into things, and depending on the type of business and all the different variables, there may be like more layers to it or fewer, or some of them may need to be thicker, you know, than others. But, you know, I started working with a lot of companies because since I had had all that past experience, you know, in terms of like building companies, both, you know, as like a solopreneur, um, in a time during rapid scaling, you know, during a time where there was an exit, and just all of those things, you know, I just had a lot of experience to really share. So started doing consulting, you know, which the industries on that varied a lot. And that was one of the things that was attractive to me, because it was kind of in a position where it's like, you know, I don't really need to make more money, but like, I mean, I'm 34 now, so, you know, I'm kind of, it's like I got to do something. And one of the ways to do that was obviously, you know, through angel investing, you know, but I consider that to be kind of gambling.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, because you typically, the bulk of your investments you lose, you know, you have a few winners, but I wanted to work more one-on-one, you know, with people and help them. And just because sometimes there were these things that people, like, now one of the most common things is people see a lot of stuff online that's just not true, or it's just, you know, it's a very one size fits all type thing. Like, you know, everyone's like, well, you need to build a webinar, you need to do Facebook ads, you need to do all these different things. And it's like, any of those could work. You know, there's a place for, you know, all of these different things, but the problem is a lot of people are telling businesses to that you have to do one thing, here's the path. And that's just not true, you know, because depending on the business, what they do, what they sell, who they're targeting, what their goals are, there's so many things that go into that. You know, the things that they do both on an operational side, you know, on a marketing side, on just structuring their business, you know, varies a lot. And so I, you know, worked with a lot of those companies, and then just through word of mouth, that's really kind of grown. One issue that kept coming up though was that, you know, we would kind of lay out marketing plans for growth for the companies that were looking for that. Then they had problems getting it actually executed.
Okay.
You know, and I really didn't want to be in the agency business. You know, I really like consulting, because we were able to take a much broader view of things, and not just say, hey, we're going to run your ads, or we're going to do things like, you know, like we're literally looking at the business from top to bottom, and, you know, helping people solve things out beyond marketing. But for the ones that did need marketing, it was coming up a lot that they just were having bad experiences with agencies, or agencies were just very focused on one thing. So like, if it was like primarily like a Facebook ads agency, then that's the only thing they wanted people to do.
Yeah.
You know, if it's like a Google ads agency, you know, that's all they did. It's not even necessarily, you know, like that they're doing anything nefarious. It's just that's
that was
what
their
they do.
expertise.
So,
yeah. Yep.
you know, that's what they're offering, you know, and we ended up, you know, acquiring an agency to be an arm of the consulting company, because we needed to fulfill that. And I had a very different viewpoint, you know, with the agency, because I had spent tens of millions of dollars personally on Google ads, and not quite as much on Facebook, but, you know, I had spent money over the years growing my own businesses. So I had a really different perspective on spending, you know, someone's money on advertising, you know, as an agency. You know, like we look at, yes, we want to maximize the return, but we also want to limit the losses because, when you're spending your own money versus spending someone else's, it's a very different feeling. And so with the agency, we started working with clients that, I consulted with, and basically expanded from there. And now, the agency takes clients directly, or some clients I work with as a consultant, and, if they need marketing, they go to the agency. But we really just look at like the whole picture, because everybody is, typically looking at, well, I got cheaper leads, or, all these vanity metrics. And it's like, okay, but let's look at like what specifically made money, or, a campaign may produce cheap leads, but if like it takes way more leads to close a deal versus a campaign that maybe the leads cost more, but the close ratio is higher. That's the kind of stuff that, by taking like the big picture view, and not we still obviously focus a lot on data and metrics, but by looking kind of beyond that and utilizing like the business experience from the past to really interpret all that data and put it together, we get really good results for our clients there. So today, like, I still kind of split my time with, I'm continuing to grow VOIPO, and then working, with clients in a lot of different industries, really. We have kind of a high concentration in the personal development space, coaches and consultants, and we have some clients that are spending, in terms of marketing, probably as low as $5,000, some that are spending $500,000 a month, so, and for me, it's really exciting to be able to help people in different industries and get to see all these different industries and connect things, and just really help people grow. Because I look back at my history, and I was in a small town in West Virginia, and building a business on the internet, really completely changed the trajectory of my life. Since middle school, like I said, I've never made less than six figures. It's been a while since I've made less than seven. And it's, now here I am in, Southern California, it's a great team, great life. And, all that, can be attributed to, building a business and, learning how to do all of that through experience and the internet.
Yeah, no, makes perfect sense. So one of the things that I want to touch on just really quickly here before we wrap up is your experience with the advertising and all that, because again, you touched on it, you hear all of these different things, YouTube is working the best right now. Facebook is working the best. You got to run video ads on Facebook. When you look at any of the companies that you're consulting with, how do you determine which is right for what company? And again, I know that you touched on the fact that there's a lot of different variables that, go into that decision, but, is there any type of rule of thumb or anything like that, I don't know if it's by the industry or by the, the type of content that they have available, or what it is. How would you choose which one would be best suited for the company?
Yeah, there are really a couple things. Like, one of the things, is what is the most natural fit for the company and what they're offering. And that's not only just as a company, but as, a business owner. So let's say if someone is not comfortable making videos, they're not comfortable on video, then a video heavy strategy is probably not good for them. So we try to figure out what is naturally a good fit that will flow well with people, because, they could get a video produced but maybe that person really likes to write. So, we might do something that's more content heavy with them. The other thing is really just kind of going by the data and getting a baseline exposure everywhere. We're very big on diversification. And even if it's just using multiple ad platforms at a very low level, and maybe one of them is kind of your primary, we still like to build audiences on all of the platforms, even if it's just retargeting based, just because we've seen the volatility in that. Facebook suspends accounts all the time, and you usually dispute it, get it back. Everything's so AI driven. So we diversify, by default. When we basically from that, we can generally see kind of some trends, even again, low budget on maybe YouTube ads, Google display. We do native and programmatic ads that are just kind of like, because everybody thinks like Facebook, Google, that's really kind of the main places to advertise. Facebook, Google, YouTube falls under Google, Instagram falls under Facebook. But if you really look at it in terms of ad inventory, that's just like 20% of the internet. Think about all the websites that you go to, from major news sites, ESPN, all these things, they have ads on them. How do they get on there? And that's programmatic advertising, and being able to just do general media buying. So we kind of diversify. And obviously, if there's something that's already working, we work on scaling it. But then we find the little pockets where we see potential, and then work on trying to do very small tests to validate scaling them up. And then we work to scale them up. So I guess in a way it's kind of a data-based approach, but also equally factoring in the who the person's trying to reach and the audience, and even the psychology. So like because people on social networks like Facebook, when they go on Facebook, they may be standing in line at the grocery store scrolling through their feed. Right. You have to have a really strong attention grabbing ad, versus someone that's going onto YouTube or Google and searching how do I do X. They're looking for something, they have intent. So we look at the psychology and on how all that plays together. And I think the third thing, really is just kind of looking at basically the metrics, but also the it's not always about like the front end numbers. It's really looking at the back end too. So we look at like what is the lifetime value, because we may find someone that wants a quick solution. It's a quick sell, but then that customer is kind of a one and done thing. So we look at the back end as well, like where are customers coming from that are becoming a customer for life.
Yeah, sure. No, that's great. That's great advice. I really like that. So Tim, if someone wanted to reach out and learn more about you or your services, what would you say is the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, sure. So the best way is probably to just go to ProfitLayer.com or TimothyDick.com. Find me on any social media, really, LinkedIn, Facebook, anywhere like that, or just good old email, tim@ProfitLayer.com. If anyone wants to reach me, any of those are all solid options.
Love it. Tim, this has been great. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.